Hello. Hi. We don't get the applause. That's later. Well, welcome everybody in the room here at Rhapsody Theater, this beautiful space. I'm glad you could make it. Welcome to all of our studio hubs, which you can see in the back here, that are joining us from all over the Midwest. And also welcome to everyone who's joining us from the webcast. We're kind of going everywhere tonight, which is exciting. My name's Sarah Jansen, in case I don't know you yet. I am the Senior Executive Director here for the Midwest chapter, and I'm thrilled that you all are here tonight. We have two amazing human beings that will be coming out, three amazing human beings. And you'll be having a really wonderful night on this magic stage. But a few housekeeping things. First, I want to thank the folks that made this happen. Our Songwriter and Composers Wing, which is co-chaired by Justin Roberts and Gao Hong. Our Producers and Engineers Wing Committee, which is chaired by the lovely Audrey Martinovich. I think we're getting weather warnings. It's all right, we're safe here. We're like in a bunker. I think it is a tornado warning. We're good. We're good. I'm gonna go with we're good. Exits are in the back. I'm just kidding. Really quick, I want to thank a couple of staffers. I want to thank Rachel and Autumn, who are co-producing upstairs. I want to thank, yes, they deserve it. I want to thank Chris from the S&C Wing, who's dialing in from Nashville. I want to thank River and, Candace, who are dialing in from the LA P&E Wing, and Maureen Droney. I want to thank Ash Sheehan for her amazing production and attention to detail. And then the one who would not have happened, it would have been for the lovely Becca Zagorski. Wherever you are magic. So thank you. Obviously, we are videotaping from multiple locations, so if you can stay seated throughout the program, I would appreciate it. Also, keep your phones down. You can just turn them off and put them away because you don't need them. And on your tables, there are little cards with QR codes. If you scan those, you can submit questions. Audrey's going to be asking some audience questions later. You can also sign the digital guest book for Jeff and Cheryl to see later. So I think that's all the housekeeping. The tornado warning stopped. I think we're safe. I promise I'll go check. But I do want to hand it off to my partner in all things Recording Academy, your Midwest chapter president, Susan Vels.
Thank you so much. Thank you. As Sarah said, I'm Susan Vels. I'm the president of the Chicago chapter of the Recording Academy. And I got here by way of being a rock violinist with Poi Dog Pondering and then playing with other bands. And as luck would have it, one of those other bands was Wilco. I was able to perform at the 20th anniversary Yankee Hotel Foxtrot extravaganzas at the Auditorium Theater. It was amazing. We're so fortunate to have Jeff and Cheryl here talking about all things that it took and didn't take to make the record, to make the special project that took home 2 Grammys from the Grammy Awards last year. Oh, this year. Okay, so not only will they be joining us, and the tornado will be... Yeah. But we have Recording Academy members joining in from around the country, and we also have people that have gathered at studio hubs all around the Midwest, and they are zooming in right now, and they are the Audio Arts in Madison, Wisconsin. Yay! Speed of Sound Recording in Des Moines, Iowa. And Studio 330 in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. Okay, so we're going to start things off with a surprise giveaway. Everyone who is currently here in the room or who or on Zoom was entered in a drawing to win a signed copy of Jeff Tweedy's newest New York Times bestseller, World Within a Song, Music That Changed My Life and Life That Changed My Music. It's an incredible book. I've read it twice, and it's memories, music, inspiration, from one of America's greatest songwriters. It's really awesome. But we're all in the drawing. So the name randomizer gave us 5 individuals that now can be revealed.
Ooh, you have the reveal.
I got the reveal.
Ooh, I didn't know.
Okay. Misha Olson from the Studio Hub, Speed of Sound. Yeah. Megan Hennessy. Undercoolant. Yeah. And John McEnany. Sorry. McEnany. McEngley. Alrighty. And Shelby Locke, who's on the web. So if you're here.
If you're here, you can pick up your books at the check-in table on your way out. And if you are dialing in, we will reach out for the best address, and we'll get those shipped out to you shortly. Congrats.
Yay. Yeah, it's an awesome book. Okay, so to get things going, I'd like to introduce next our moderator for tonight, Justin Roberts. He's a 5-time Grammy nominee. He's a children's musician with 16 albums. He's considered a founder of the modern music scene. He's performed on The Today Show, Lollapalooza, Austin City Limits, Ravinia, to name a few. He's a past president of the Recording Academy, and he's kind of the reason I got into the Recording Academy, we realized tonight. Let's see. Oh, he's now the chair of the Songwriters and Composers Committee. So he's quite good at what he does. I'd like to introduce my friend, Justin Roberts.
All right. Are we excited or what? Yeah, it's going to be amazing. I'm going to do a brief introduction of our two guests and then bring them out. The founding member and leader of the Grammy Award-winning American rock band Wilco, and before that, the co-founder of the alt-country band Uncle Tupelo. Jeff Tweedy is one of contemporary music's most accomplished songwriters, musicians, and performers. Jeff's released 3 solo albums, written original songs for 13 Wilco albums, and is the author of 3 New York Times bestsellers: Let's Go So We Can Get Back, How to Write One Song, and World Within a Song, Music That Changed My Life and Life That Changed My Music. Our second guest is the amazing Cheryl Pawelski, who has for years been entrusted with preserving, curating, and championing some of music's greatest legacies. From Aretha Franklin, the Beach Boys, Buddy Guy, Nina Simone, Janis Joplin, Tony Bennett, Ringo Starr, Wilco, and a whole lot more. In addition to co-founding and producing releases for Omnivore Records, her label, Pawelski is a sought-after producer and resource for artists, estates, media entities, and about every record label. Hailing from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, she is a self-proclaimed cheesehead. Put your hands together for Jeff Tweedy and Cheryl Pawelski.
Which way you want me? Yeah, that's perfect.
Whoa.
Who's that?
Do we have any engineers here?
Who's feeding back?
I think it's me.
It's getting a little close.
It's a welcome sound. We're talking about Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
That's right. We want a little noise.
It's going to be okay.
So I thought we would start off by talking a little bit about the creative process, both songwriting and recording, and also the creative work that Cheryl does telling stories with her archival production. So to start off with Jeff, you not so long ago wrote a book about songwriting, How to Write One Song. And I loved hearing about the daily ritual of songwriting that you go through and the kind of word games you play and things you do to get your mind distracted enough that you can sort of disappear into a song. Mm-hmm. And I thought there were some amazing moments in there, like inspiration is rarely the first step, which I totally agree with. It's like you have to get working before you can actually do something. But the thing that I found really fascinating, and I just wanted to hear more about, is writing a song will teach you that it's okay to fail. What did you mean by that?
I don't remember. This just sounds good, I think. I mean, I think music in general is a safe place to fail. You know, you're not really hurting anybody. I think you remind yourself, you put a lot of weight on it, but the stakes are always pretty low. And I think that you know, sidestep that feeling when you take your ego out of it and you look at it as a daily practice of spending time with yourself in your imagination. You can't be wrong. It can't be wrong. But at the same time, I mean, there's failure, and you fail a lot. You fail. The best thing is to fail very badly quickly, writing a song, and then you move on to the next song. You get stuck when you're worried about it being a failure, and you stay in that one song, that one spot. But I just think that it's you know, at the end of it, once you do it for a long time, it really makes the notion of failure pretty, I don't know, almost quaint or something. It's not really, I wouldn't call it failure. It's like nothing's really ever lost. You learn something about yourself writing terrible songs. Yeah. I know myself better because of the songs that you've never heard.
And you also find, I mean, you describe how you like lose track of things that you've, like voice memos you've recorded from years ago, and then return to them and think, oh wow, that was actually a good idea.
That's one of my main strategies, is to accumulate on a daily basis enough stuff that I don't really go back to. I don't really dwell upon. I just spend enough time with the guitar to go, oh, that's pretty interesting, and I record it, or I write a poem and I think that's cool. And then when I'm in the process of coming up with material for a record, I'll go and listen through a bunch of stuff like that and go, who wrote this? What is this? And I get excited, and I get excited by the potential that I must have heard originally, but there's also another new layer of potential.
Just from time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like the only way to get to listen to yourself as if you're somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. And Cheryl, with the work you do, collaborating with other artists and telling stories with their music and all of their recordings, could you tell us, we're going to talk a lot about your relationship with Jeff and Wilco's catalog, but tell us a little bit about some other artists you've worked with, in particular Robbie Robertson, that you did tons of work with his reissues, and what that collaboration is like.
You know, Robbie, I was on staff at Capitol Records at the time, and I had started working on reissues, and I had approached the sales folks at Capitol. I said, you know, I don't understand why Stage Fright is in our budget catalog, and I don't understand why they haven't been afforded the kind of reissue treatment a lot of the other Capitol artists had. And they said, well, you know, everybody loves the band, but they never sold, and just go away, kid, you bother me. Right, but I dove in, and I really felt it was an important body of work. So I started doing all of this research, and one day the phone rang, and it was Robbie Robertson, and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, I'm trying to put together a plan for reissues." He goes, "I know. The studio guys called me, and they said you were rolling all this tape off." He said, "Why didn't you just call me?" And I'm like, well, because I want to have my shit together when I talk to you, you know? It's like, I don't want to just come and go, hey, Robbie, you want to do, you know? No. I really wanted to know, you know, if there was a there where, and what I thought might exist existed, and it did. But it's so different from working with Jeff, because we're a lot closer in age, and I find that throughout my career, when I was working with older artists, their drive was to make everything perfect and only put out things that were perfect. And, you know, Robbie he was like, did you have the multi on that? Can I remix it? And I'm like, no, because I trust, you know, 1969 Robbie. You know, I trust the artists that you were then. Jeff and the guys in the band, they're music heads.
We're the opposite. We want nothing to be perfect.
No, it's not that.
It's broken. It's broke, and I don't want to fix it.
Right, but you understand the context that it's going to be presented in.
Right.
Whereas, you know, Robbie was, and yeah, gosh, I loved working with him. But, he was always trying to make stuff perfect. And I said, Robbie, why? Stop with the remixing. And he said, well, you have to understand that I started recording when recording started, kind of. And he said, I learned every iteration of recording machines, and now I have all of this knowledge, I want to make use of it. And frankly, I just told him no.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the different attitude is probably because when Robbie Robertson was learning how to write songs, growing up, being inspired by records, there was no such thing as a reissue with outtakes
Right.
and bonus tracks.
Yeah.
And I grew up learning so much from the things that were left behind.
Yeah.
And so it's flattering to get to be a part of, that somebody would be interested in hearing our process and
Yeah.
hearing the steps that it took to get to a record like Yankee Hotel Foxtrot. And I have no interest in messing with that communication.
Right.
So, speaking of collaboration, Jeff, how important is that to you in the artistic process? When you describe your songwriting, it sounds very much like being alone with yourself and having either magical moments or frustrating moments or whatever, but it is just very much a solitary thing. How has collaboration become a part either of the songs you write, eventually playing with the band and recording, or collaborating with other artists?
I've gotten really good at being alone with people, so
Yeah.
I think that facilitates collaboration to some
Yeah.
degree. I don't know, that sounds like a joke answer or something, but I mean, what I mean is being as forgiving of myself with other people in the room as I am with myself alone. And collaborators, the best ones, the people that you really love spending day after day after day with, are the ones that get that and are that way too. And there's no hurting feelings. There's no. It's just like you're just up for basically the main fix is to go home having made something that wasn't there, and it's a powerful fix to get to be allowed to do that as much as I have been in my life.
Was that a big transition from going from working alone to working with others, like getting yourself to be that vulnerable?
Well, nobody
in that
ever really
situation?
works alone either.
Yeah.
Like honestly, I think I played songs for my mom. I've played songs for. I mean, if I hear it, I can't really sing to myself. Honestly, I have to picture somebody, and that's not really being alone either. It's just that's one of the main sacrifices at the same time of being an artist is you have to be comfortable with surrendering a lot of time with people. You have to be comfortable with solitude, but it's not the same as being alone. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think of just my bandmates as being collaborators. I think of my friends, my kids, the people that I work with at the Loft that aren't musically involved, engineers. It's just like there's a lot of people involved all the time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Is there a particular collaboration that you've done that's been most impactful, or one of them? I wouldn't say.
I mean, it's hard to. The one I probably will always be the most proud of is getting to work with Mavis Staples and contributing something to her catalog, to her body of work that seems to have resonated not just with her audience or a new audience, but with her, that she likes to sing, that means something to her. I think that would have satisfied me without it, winning a Grammy.
Yeah, but I was there the year that she won, and that was like the greatest moment of any Grammy I've ever been at.
I wasn't there, and it was the greatest moment I've had at a Grammy.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, it was incredible, like, yeah.
I was watching on my wife's computer.
Oh, so after you write a song and it takes a journey into your band and into a recording studio, how does that look? Do you come in with arrangement ideas, or are you coming in with a pretty bare bones song, letting the band decide?
I mean, Cheryl can attest to this because she spent like an ungodly amount of time with the explorations of myself and the bandmates I've had over the years, listening to how we try again and again and again to get like a song to work. It goes, I don't know. I don't know. I think that's what I'm trying to get at is that there's no one way of looking at it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes I come into the studio every day, like a record like Cruel Country, which was a couple of years ago,
Yep.
and we learn the song and we record it, and that's it, and it's done. It's super satisfying and it's immediate. And then there are other things that you just know it's going to take a long, long time to get something that surprises you in a way that lives up to the potential you hear in the song.
Yep.
And I think you have to be open to it never being quite the same, you know.
So in particular, if we're looking at Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, there's all these amazing earlier versions that are completely mind-blowing when you're used to hearing the record as we've been introduced to it. What was the process like with Yankee that was different from your previous records before that, in terms of the studio mixing and?
Well, I think that the record before it, Summer Teeth, was the record where I really started thinking, we can do this one thing that we did on Being There. We can be a rock and roll band, and we can be a bar band. We can sound like the records in our record collection. But the bands that I love are the bands that could sound like each other and decided to not sound like each other, to decide to get everybody in a room and agree that we're not going to sound like anything other than what we sound like together. And so that's a really hard thing to do, and it's a hard thing to stay focused on, because there's a lot of things on the box set where I would like listen to it now and go, that was good enough. That would have been good enough.
But some of those things did sound like other bands.
Right.
Including your older bands.
Yeah, right.
Right.
It wasn't satisfying.
Right.
Because it was like, I mean, you should be able to. I mean, I'm inspired by so many records by people that can hardly play their instruments, that found a way to sound like nobody else. In fact, rock and roll is built on that thing above all else. It's like, be yourself without any apology, and on purpose. But it's really hard in the era that I grew up in. Influences are like really starting to be pastiche, you know, like really starting to be easily kind of taken and moved. Like, oh, we're taking some jazz here, and we're going to do this, like it's a recipe or a formula or something like that.
I would have jumped in earlier, but I don't have visibility of how you work now. I only have visibility of how you work from AM forward. Please leave some things in the can for me.
Oh, believe me, you've been to the loft.
I
You've
have.
seen there's hard drives of
Yes.
so much stuff. Trust me, we'll be
Thank you.
we'll be
All right.
okay. Nobody's going to care about it, but
Well,
I
20
was-
years from now, they will.
who knows? You never know.
I was especially loving the one of the versions of Camera that sounds like glam rock. It's got like this big rock guitar, and like the song itself, I feel like is so internal, and the lyrics are so heartfelt, and like on the actual recording, it feels like you're speaking directly to the listener because it's so stripped down compared to that. But it's so fun to hear that was one version, and that might have been the song. Like,
And there was so much joy in those takes. When we're like, wow, we can sound like this? You know, like those were the records we wanted to sound like, just out of the sheer, like, I mean, I think we learned a lot.
Yep.
Like aiming at something and going, wow, we can get pretty close to T-Rex, or we can get pretty close to the Birds, or like, not there, but there already is a Birds, there already is a T-Rex or something, so.
But it's also fun to hear you take parts of those things and like, put it in this car and make it go over here,
Well, I mean, the joy of it is to be audacious, or like give yourself permission to say, oh, well, we could be as good as the Beatles, why not?
Yeah.
And you aim for something very, very, very high, and you end up somewhere that you cannot picture, because that you aim for something you can't see, and I think that's like, I would say that's a really good bit of advice for if anybody wants to do what I do or what you do.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's like keep aiming. You know, stay in touch with like people that you are inspired by. Stay in touch with listening to new records, and keep being reminded of how high the bar is all the time. People are making great stuff all the time, and you got to keep aiming for it. And you're not going to hit that.
Right.
If you're doing it
You're gonna
right,
hit
you won't
something
hit
totally
that.
different. Yeah.
Well, that's what you were saying about that Stravinsky mix of of Ashes.
Right.
I had sort of discounted it because I couldn't find the final mix, and the guys were on tour, and I went and I played it for Jeff, and he's like, "That's awesome! I want to put that on the set." And I'm like, and I'm like, okay, well, you know, it got denied initially from the record because of clearances, permissions from the Stravinsky estate.
Rightfully so.
But they said yes this time.
It was an abomination.
But it was a cool abomination, especially when you explained to me how aspirational it felt for you.
Totally.
And I was really glad we were able to clear it this
No, it's
time.
one of my favorite things. I mean, it was completely aspirational. It's like I was listening and educating myself on like with modern music and modern composition, and trying to fill in the gaps in my knowledge of minimalism and different, you know, serial things and things like that. So I was listening to Stravinsky and stuff like that and going, God, how do you do that? And then I would listen to my own music and I would think, there's room here for this, but I don't know how to do it. And so that was like, there's literally the impulse was like, wait, I'll just play Stravinsky at the same time.
That's incredible.
Worked out fine.
So speaking of the reissue, Cheryl, can you describe sort of the process of going through all of this material and the formats and what it was like trying to make sense of the puzzle of the pieces you were given?
Right. Well, you know, the world kind of changed during the making of this. The band certainly changed, and also technology changed. So we had everything. We had DATs, we had ADATs, we had tape, we had cassettes, we had CDRs, and I know some fans were kind of cranky that I didn't put, you know, the date that everything was recorded in the set, but it was impossible to give any one of those tracks a date. Not only because, you know, I would have a CDR that said Gwar on it, and I'm like, I know who Gwar is. You know, some of them had, you know, little doodles and drawings, and that's not helpful, but there was great music on it, right?
Were there any with boobs on them?
No, but
I've seen some with boobs on them. I apologize. It
That
wasn't me.
Remind me to tell you about the Rod Stewart tapes.
Okay.
Later, but, you know, when I do a project like this, I transfer everything, and you know, he gets to create it and move forward, and then goes and makes more awesome records. I go backwards and try to reconstruct how things happened, and it's always incomplete, and I don't know what I'm missing. So it's extra fun. But this particular record was done and undone in a lot of ways. So one day I eventually just asked myself the question, well, if something was recorded on May 5th in a given year, and then nothing exists anymore in the final mix, is that recording date relevant? And I just decided I have so little information, and the answer to that question in my mind is no. Then it's just an arbitrary day on the calendar. So I couldn't just assign random dates. Because also the thing about
Because you got integrity.
Yes, I do. I wasn't going to make stuff up, but also some of the latter recordings sound like their earlier recordings, and I can't explain that except maybe you're just trying things different ways.
Well, it sounds like exactly what the record company said, which is that it gets worse every time they hear
That's
it.
right, yeah. I love that quote.
So that would explain why it sounds like an earlier take when we're at the end.
But even the arrangements, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
so, you know, this record,
Well, there's nothing linear about it in that
Right.
process, because some things we would go through a whole bunch of incarnations of something and become, and just realize that we were closer than we thought in the beginning.
Right.
So what, you know, Poor Places needed wasn't to
Right.
go through all of these and, you know, revise something that ended up here.
Right.
It was to go back and record a middle section for this.
Right.
And take it apart and just tape edit it back together.
Right.
I was convinced that there would never be a box set for Yankee Hotel Foxtrot, because what I was really thinking was there's no way to remix Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
Right.
Because it was all on computers, and all of the edits are tape edits. They're not on a computer. We had a computer. We could have done Pro Tools things, but we were literally making mixes, wiping the board, and then doing the old school thing of taking the tape and splicing it together.
yeah, and that's why I'm glad, you know, we had sort of CDRs or cassettes or whatever you guys were taking home, because you know, it was there that I was able to save some of those snapshots along the way that got wiped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And in terms of the whole project, like how to put together all of this material in a way that would be listenable for someone who wanted to go through it,
Yeah.
what was the moment where you're like, oh, I see how this could all fit together?
Well, this one in particular was kind of terrifying because, you know, for a couple of reasons, all the work I'd done previous when I handled records that meant so much to people and had become, you know, sort of deemed classics or masterpieces, somebody else's hands had been there before me, right? Because, you know, we're around the same age. So there were people before me that, you know, went and spelunked on Pet Sounds. I may have worked on a bunch of Pet Sounds reissues, but, you know, those tapes have been gone through. So I felt a lot of responsibility to get this right to all the stakeholders, you know, and that's everybody. It's the fans, it's the band, and everybody in between. But the other thing is, you know, because of the nature of this record, it really was a Rubik's Cube. Like, I would get the orange side done, and I'd turn it over, and it would be like, so it was really literally the last day of mixing at the Loft, and we finished the last mix, and I just, you know, the piece fell in, and I was like, don't touch a thing. You know? Because the thing about this is, I didn't want it to be a box set that is sort of a reference, you know. Like there's these great Mosaic box sets, it's like jazz stuff, right? And it's like, take 1, false start, take 2, complete, yay, take 3, incomplete.
The Funhouse box set.
The Funhouse box set,
Yeah.
yeah. And some of those things are fun to listen to, but, you know, at a certain point, you just can't take a disc and throw it in your car and go rocking. So you know, a goal I had for this was to take some snapshots of the record being made, but also make those snapshots listenable and enjoyable, because it's an amazing record. And to be able to experience it a couple different ways was sort of the goal. And not having some chronology to it was liberating. I sort of knew where the recordings fit in the chronology, and I sort of built those 3 discs that way, but I just felt it was a lot more satisfying to listen to, so. But terrifying overall.
Good job.
Terrifying is good
Thank
sometimes,
you.
right?
I could never do it.
Thank you.
So, I mean, knowing that Yankee Hotel Foxtrot is considered a masterpiece by many and one of the greatest rock albums of all time by Rolling Stone, all these things, is that pressure on you? Like, do you think, like, when you were following it up, or even looking, when you're making records now, are you thinking, like, that record? Or not?
No,
No.
I hope not.
Yeah.
I mean, whenever I say something like that confidently, I always immediately go, no, there are things that are obviously going to weigh on you when the world starts paying attention to you, and the world was paid more attention to us than they ever had at that moment. So being conscious of an audience changes you as an artist, changes you as a writer. It has to. But I think that what I hope would come from it, and I think did come from it, is an energy to use that knowledge that someone's listening, and be confident that what you're going to share is something worth sharing. You know, I think it could go both ways. It can be stultifying or like intimidating. I think it can, you know, for a lot of people, I think it is a burden that something was well received, or you're never going to be as good as that again. And I didn't think it was that good. I thought it was really good. I thought it was the best we could do.
Yeah.
And then I thought, like, A Ghost is Born was the best I could do. And then I thought, you know, I thought Sky Blue Sky was the best we can do. Honest to God, it's just like every time, it's just like, I know I can't do any better than this. And you know, go back and listen to something like Yankee when it's being put together, which I didn't do very much.
Right.
I'm like, this is really, really good. It really meant a lot to me to be reminded that it was good and it felt good. But that I don't spend that much time doing that.
Yeah. Speaking of moving on in your career and knowing that we have a lot of producers here, I was curious if you could talk just a little bit about Kate LeBon and your latest record, Cousin, and how you decided to work with her and what she brought to the table in terms of a collaboration with the songs you brought in and how she approached them. Mm-hmm. If you talk a little bit about that.
I'm a huge fan of Kate LeBon. I think she's a really unique talent and one of my favorite artists and one of my favorite people. We've gotten to be friends over the years. And I wanted to work with Kate because I love her, and I thought that it would be really a catalyst for getting something different out of the songs that I write. I like the idea of working with a woman, which I felt like has not happened that much in rock and roll from my perspective. There's not a whole lot of times that women get hired as producers for bands that have been around for 30 years. So that felt like a inspired bit of lateral thinking or something, you know, that felt so right to me to get to, you know, and that she wanted to do it and that we were friends. And it did. I completely surrendered to her. She went to the Dropbox and picked out of like 50 songs the 10 she wanted to work on. And I'm like, okay, that's great. At the end of the day, I have to sign off on some things. There are only a few things that I pushed back on and said, no, I really missed this. But I wanted to hear what it sounded like through her ears, and that's what it is.
Yeah, and when you've been making music for as long as you have, mm-hmm. like, how do you make something that sounds new and like having that collaboration? You can hear it's like a different Wilco and a different sound.
Yeah, it still sounds like Wilco.
Yeah, no, it does, but yeah.
But I think
it's like a new
Mark
version.
Greenberg, our studio manager, he put it as Wilco with a different lighting director. You know, it's just like being different parts of Wilco are being shown for the first time.
I love that. Cheryl, new projects that you're moving on to that you can tell us about, or anything recent?
I can't tell anybody.
You can't tell you about it. That's what you always tell me.
I know, sorry.
Cheryl and I met when we were both trustees at the Recording Academy, and I saw that she was the head of Omnivore, and I was like, wait, I have like 12 records by Omnivore. Wait, they put out the Game Theory stuff, and I like chased her down, and like we chatted about every like Willis Allen Ramsey and all these people for hours and hours.
The truth is, we put out so many records, and I also do a lot of, I can't remember our schedule, so I truly can't tell you. Got some good Dr. John stuff for a record store day. That'll be
awesome.
Really fun, the singles. But it's I just draw a blank. Sorry.
We have ongoing stuff we're working on.
We do?
Never mind.
I guess we do, yeah.
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 Well, I
There you
mean,
go.
I just assumed that because I just assumed you weren't going to stop at Yankee Hotel Foxtrot.
No, I you know,
You're stuck with us.
I think we're moving on, so, and it's, this one is equally interesting.
It's
Well-
daunting.
Well, before we move on to questions, thank you both for making such an amazing record and making a box set that's so incredible.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
And we've been taking questions during this program, and we're going to turn it over.
Hello, everyone. Hi, thanks for being here. I'm Audrey Martinovich, chair of the Producers and Engineers Wing Committee, co-owner of Audio for the Arts Recording Studios, which is one of our studio hubs back there on the screen.
Yay!
My staff is joining us. They're super awesome. So I'm asking a few questions on behalf of members who have submitted such questions. And the first one is for Jeff. Jeff, I loved learning about songwriting from all three of your books. What are some things you would recommend to a new songwriter trying to spark inspiration?
Well, I think it's one of the things Justin was saying. It's in my book on how to write one song. Is like inspiration is maybe it's maybe something that needs to be invited instead of waited for. Put yourself in the path of inspiration is what I always say, and that, to me, that just means picking up the guitar even when you don't feel like it, or picking up a pencil when you don't feel like it, and just getting to work. And 90% of the time, you lose yourself. You start to get into it. You start to hear something. You start to feel something that you didn't expect. And I'm always really, really grateful that I did that, because I always know that that would not have happened if I hadn't said to myself, you've got 10 minutes before lobby call, let's write a song, you know? And it feels good.
Yeah, I like that. Put
Yeah, you
yourself
go to
in the
work.
path.
Go to work.
Go to work.
Younger artists wait for inspiration. Older artists go to work.
There you
Make
go.
it happen.
I
Cheryl,
didn't say that. Somebody said that.
we can put your name at the bottom and
Jeff Tweedy said that.
Tweedy said that. Cheryl, in a market that seems flooded with re-releases, special and deluxe editions, you always find the best albums to reissue and put so much care into the final product.
That's nice.
What do you look for when considering a new project?
Story.
Yeah.
You know, I get to be a storyteller and a champion oftentimes for things that have been overlooked, or stuff I just think is awesome and cool, and I have the freedom because it's our label, mine and my partners. We can put out records that nobody else will. So. I take a lot of pride in that. It's not the best business model, but you know, to me it comes down to the story and you know, the importance of not losing some of this work and throwing it into the future.
And this last question is for you both.
Uh-oh.
What advice would both of you give to the next generation of Midwest musicians?
Don't move. Just wherever you go, there you are. You're just going to have to stick with yourself. Bet on yourself.
Yeah, and find your people, right? Like make your own scene. I left, sorry. But you know, my business wasn't here, so.
Move back.
Yeah.
There you go.
I tried to have bands.
No, it's totally different if there's a musician. I think obviously some people benefit greatly from finding a different environment to be in and finding, you know, the connections you make. But in general, I always think, you know, for Cheryl, moving the business absolutely is where it is.
Yeah.
But for most people, I think you should be somewhere where you have community and support and friends and family and time to suck before people start writing articles about you and stuff. And, you know, like, I think that doesn't happen as much in the major media markets and places where it's harder to get gigs. And I don't know, I've never understood it. You know, like, move somewhere where there's more bands? No, thanks.
More competition.
I'd rather be the only band.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Audrey. And let's thank our amazing guests again, Jeff and Cheryl, for their wealth of knowledge. Yeah. So for those of us in the room, we can head back to the front bar for a reception. And for those watching, stay on the line because Vice President of the Producer and Engineers Wing, Maureen Droney, will be speaking, so that'll be amazing.
All right.
And thanks again, everyone. It's been a wonderful night.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.
Thank you, Justin. Thank you.